Why do most goals fail? It's not because you lack talent, discipline, or motivation. It's because you've been focusing on the wrong things. Chasing outcomes instead of building habits, seeking validation instead of mastering the process, and fearing failure instead of learning from it. Sustainable success isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter, with a mindset rooted in resilience and clarity. Most people set goals thinking that achieving them will bring happiness, fulfillment, and peace. They believe that crossing the finish line will finally make them feel whole. But the problem is, when you focus solely on the outcome, you hand your happiness over to something outside of yourself. You place your sense of worth and accomplishment on a single future moment. And in doing so, you overlook the most valuable part of the process, the journey itself. The reality is, success isn't found in the achievement of a goal. It's built in the daily actions and habits that lead you there. Think about someone training for a marathon. If they focus entirely on crossing the finish line, they'll see every training session as a burden, every setback as a failure, and every missed target as proof that they aren't good enough. But the ones who succeed, the ones who don't just reach the finish line but grow in the process, are the ones who learn to value each step of the journey. They show up for the early morning runs, they push through the discomfort, they learn to embrace the challenges. They don't define their success by the race day result, they define it by the discipline they build along the way. When you place too much weight on the outcome, you introduce fear into the equation. You become afraid of failure because failure would mean that everything was for nothing. You start to hesitate, overthink, and second-guess yourself. You become paralyzed because the possibility of not reaching the goal feels like a personal loss. But when you shift your focus to the process, you remove that fear. You realize that success isn't determined by one singular moment. It's built in the quiet, consistent effort you put in every day. You take pride in the fact that you showed up, that you gave your best, that you pushed through resistance. Focusing on the outcome also leads to a dangerous cycle of dissatisfaction. You tell yourself, once I reach this goal, then I'll be happy. But when you finally get there, the satisfaction is fleeting. You immediately start looking for the next goal, the next challenge, the next mountain to climb. The problem isn't that you're ambitious. It's that you're tying your sense of peace and self-worth to things that are always moving. The moment you reach one target, the next one appears, and so you're never satisfied. You never feel like you've arrived, because you've placed happiness in something that's always just out of reach. But when you focus on the process, the game changes. You realize that success isn't in the goal, it's in becoming the kind of person who shows up every day, who puts in the work, who remains steady regardless of the outcome. If you're training for a race, success isn't measured by the medal, it's measured by the strength and resilience you build during the training. If you're working toward a career goal, success isn't in the job title, it's in the skills you develop and the confidence you gain along the way. The reward is in the person you become through the process. There's a story about an artist who spent years working on a masterpiece. He would wake up every morning and spend hours in his studio, carefully refining every stroke and detail. He wasn't thinking about how the world would receive his work. He was simply lost in the process of creation. One day, someone asked him if he was nervous about how the final piece would be judged. He smiled and said, "The work is already done. The reward was in creating it." That's the mindset shift that unlocks sustainable success. When you measure your success by your effort and growth rather than the final outcome, you take back control. The process becomes the reward. This is why most goals fail, because people are so obsessed with the result that they overlook the value of the journey. They see effort as a necessary evil rather than the foundation of success. They become discouraged when progress is slow, or when the goal seems far away because they're measuring success through the wrong lens. But when you learn to embrace the process, everything changes. You stop stressing over how long it will take. You stop letting setbacks define you. You find fulfillment in the work itself, and that creates a momentum that carries you forward. Focusing on the process doesn't mean you stop caring about the outcome. It means you stop letting it control you. You still work toward your goal, but you understand that the real victory isn't in crossing the finish line. It's in the strength, resilience, and discipline you build along the way. The outcome becomes a byproduct of your effort, not the reason for it. That's how you create sustainable success, by showing up every day, putting in the work, and trusting that the process itself is enough. The goal isn't to reach the end as quickly as possible. The goal is to become the kind of person who thrives in the process. When you focus on that, the outcome will take care of itself. Most people chase success not because they genuinely want it, but because they believe it will earn them validation from others. They want the recognition, the approval, the admiration. They want to be seen as successful, not just feel successful. But the problem with this mindset is that it places your sense of worth in the hands of others, and that makes it fragile. When your success depends on how other people perceive you, you lose control over your own happiness. You become a puppet, constantly adjusting yourself to meet other people's expectations, hoping that they'll see you as enough. That's why so many goals fail, because they aren't rooted in a personal sense of purpose. They are built on the unstable foundation of external validation. The truth is, success that relies on external validation is never enough. No matter how much you achieve, how much recognition you receive, or how many people admire you, it will never satisfy you if you don't feel enough within yourself. You could climb to the top of your field, receive every award, and still feel empty if your sense of worth comes from outside approval. That's because external validation is fleeting. People's opinions are inconsistent. One day they praise you, the next day they criticize you. If your self-worth is tied to how others see you, you're setting yourself up for constant instability. Imagine someone who's built their entire identity around professional success. They're admired for their work ethic, respected for their achievements, and known as a leader in their field. But deep down, they feel hollow. Why? Because their sense of accomplishment isn't coming from the work itself. It's coming from the recognition that follows it. The moment the applause fades, they start to feel insecure. The success that once made them feel powerful now feels meaningless because they were chasing validation, not personal fulfillment. The key to sustainable success is learning to detach from external validation. When you shift your focus away from how others perceive you and toward how you feel about yourself, everything changes. You stop performing for others and start living for yourself. You start asking, am I proud of the work I'm doing? Instead of, will others be impressed by this? You begin measuring success by the effort you put in, the integrity you maintain, and the growth you experience, not by how others react to you. And when you do that, you become unstoppable. Think about an artist who creates not for the praise, but because they love the process of creating. They don't care whether the world understands their work or not. They create because it's a part of who they are. That's true success. Doing something because it aligns with your values and sense of purpose, not because it might earn you admiration. When you detach from the need for validation, you regain control over your life. You stop chasing approval and start building confidence from within. It's not easy to let go of external validation because society constantly reinforces the idea that success equals recognition. From a young age, we're taught to seek approval. Good grades mean praise from teachers. Athletic achievements mean admiration from peers. Career success means respect from society. But the problem is, when you build your sense of identity on these external markers, you're always at the mercy of things you can't control. The job promotion you worked so hard for might not happen. The project you poured your heart into might not be well received. The people whose approval you crave might not give it to you. And when that happens, you're left feeling like a failure, not because you failed, but because you attached your worth to things outside of your control. Real success comes from knowing that you've given your best, regardless of the outcome. It's knowing that you stayed true to your values, that you put in the effort, that you acted with integrity, even if no one else noticed. When you learn to measure success internally rather than externally, you become resilient. You're no longer thrown off course by criticism or setbacks, because you're not looking for others to validate you. You become grounded in your own sense of worth. That's why so many people who appear successful on the surface are miserable beneath it. They've learned how to impress others, but they haven't learned how to satisfy themselves. They've mastered the art of meeting society's standards, but they've neglected their own inner standards. True success isn't about convincing others that you're successful. It's about feeling successful within yourself. It's about knowing that you've shown up fully, that you've given your best, that you've remained aligned with your values. This shift in perspective changes everything. When you detach from external validation, you become free. You stop needing approval to feel whole. You stop adjusting yourself to fit into someone else's version of success. You start building confidence from within, knowing that your value isn't tied to what you achieve, it's tied to who you are. And ironically, this is when real success starts to flow more naturally. When you stop chasing validation, you start doing work that matters to you. You start making decisions based on what feels right for you, not what will impress others. And that's when true fulfillment begins. Detach from the need to be seen as successful, and you'll finally experience real success. Most people think success is about motivation, that feeling of excitement and drive that pushes you to take action. They wait for motivation to strike before they start working toward their goals. But here's the truth. Motivation is unreliable. It's fleeting. It's inconsistent. You might feel motivated today, but tomorrow that feeling could disappear. And if your progress depends on whether or not you feel motivated, you'll never build sustainable success. That's why so many goals fail, because they're built on the unstable foundation of motivation instead of the steady foundation of discipline. Motivation is emotional. It's influenced by your mood, your environment, and even factors outside your control. On a good day, you might feel energized and inspired to take massive action. But what happens on the days when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed? What happens when you don't feel like showing up? If you've conditioned yourself to only take action when you feel motivated, you'll lose momentum the moment that feeling fades. That's why motivation isn't enough. It's too fragile to carry you through the hard days, the setbacks, and the inevitable challenges that come with pursuing any meaningful goal. Discipline, on the other hand, is reliable. It doesn't care how you feel. Discipline means showing up even when you don't want to. It means doing the work not because you feel like it, but because you've committed to it. And the key to building discipline isn't just sheer willpower, it's creating systems that make it easier for you to succeed. You need to design your life in a way that supports your goals even when motivation isn't there. Think about an athlete training for competition. They don't wake up every day feeling motivated to train. They don't always feel excited to push through pain, exhaustion, and discomfort. But they do it anyway because they have a system in place. They have a routine. They have habits that are ingrained in their daily life. So even when motivation is absent, they still follow the plan. They don't rely on motivation to get them to the gym. They've made it a non-negotiable part of their day. That's discipline. The problem with relying on motivation is that it makes success feel optional. When you tell yourself, "I'll work on my goal when I feel motivated," you're giving yourself an excuse to avoid the work. But when you build a system, when you create a structure that supports consistent action, you remove choice from the equation. It becomes automatic. You stop asking yourself, "Do I feel like doing this today?" And instead you simply do it because it's part of your process. Let's say your goal is to write a book. If you rely on motivation, you might write a few pages when inspiration strikes, but that's not enough to finish a book. Discipline means setting a daily writing schedule and sticking to it even when you don't feel inspired. It means sitting down and writing even when the words don't flow easily. It means showing up consistently, knowing that progress isn't about how you feel. It's about the effort you put in, day after day. That's how real success is built, through consistent action, not bursts of motivation. This is why building systems matters. A system is a set of habits and routines that make success inevitable. It's about designing your environment and structuring your day in a way that makes it easier for you to stay consistent. If you want to eat healthier, discipline means preparing your meals in advance, keeping junk food out of the house, and making it easy to grab something healthy when you're hungry. If you want to exercise regularly, discipline means setting a specific time for your workout each day, laying out your workout clothes the night before, and creating an environment that makes it easier to follow through. Success doesn't come from waiting for motivation. It comes from creating systems that remove friction and make consistent action automatic. The problem is that most people set goals without building systems. They say, "I want to lose weight," or "I want to grow my business," but they don't create a structure that supports those goals. Without a system, you're relying on motivation to carry you, and that's why most people quit. When you build a system, you make success a natural byproduct of your daily habits. You remove the emotional decision-making and replace it with consistency. It's not about how hard you push when you're feeling motivated, it's about how consistently you show up when you don't feel like it. That's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. The person who only shows up when they're inspired will never outperform the person who shows up every day regardless of how they feel. Discipline beats motivation every time because it removes the question of whether or not you'll take action. When you have a system, action becomes automatic. Think about it. If you have to negotiate with yourself every day about whether or not you'll work toward your goal, you're wasting valuable energy. When you build a system, you eliminate that negotiation. It becomes part of your identity. This is what I do. You no longer need motivation because action is built into your routine, and over time those small, consistent actions compound into massive results. That's how you build sustainable success, not through motivation, but through disciplined action supported by strong systems. Motivation will come and go, but discipline is permanent. Build the system, commit to the process, and success will take care of itself. Most people see obstacles as signs that they're on the wrong path. When things get difficult, they assume they've made a mistake, that maybe this goal wasn't meant for them after all, but that's not true. Obstacles aren't signs that you should stop. They're signs that you're growing. They are not barriers to success, they are part of the process. The struggle is not separate from the journey. The struggle is the journey. Success isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about learning how to face them with strength and clarity. It's easy to feel confident when everything is going your way, when you're making progress, when the path is clear, when you're seeing results. But what happens when you hit a wall? What happens when you experience failure, rejection, or setbacks? That's when most people give up. They assume that difficulty means they're not capable or that the goal isn't possible. But obstacles aren't there to stop you. They're there to shape you. They're there to test how badly you want it and to force you to grow into the person who's capable of achieving it. Imagine you're climbing a mountain. You've been walking for hours and suddenly you reach a steep, rocky section of the trail. Your legs are burning, your breath is heavy, and you feel like you can't go on. At that moment, you have a choice. You can turn back and tell yourself that the climb is too hard, that you weren't ready for it, that it's not worth the effort. Or you can pause, take a breath, and remind yourself that this is exactly what you signed up for. You didn't expect the climb to be easy, you expected it to challenge you. And that's the point. Every step you take through that difficult terrain makes you stronger. Every rock you climb over makes you more capable. If the climb was easy, it wouldn't be worth it, and you wouldn't grow from it. That's how life works. The path to any meaningful goal is going to be hard. It's going to test you. There will be moments when you question yourself, when you feel like quitting, when you wonder if you have what it takes. But those moments are where the transformation happens. Growth doesn't come from comfort, it comes from resistance. When you push through the hard parts, when you keep going, even when it's uncomfortable, that's when you become stronger. That's when you develop the resilience, the wisdom, and the strength that success requires. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They set goals, but when the path gets difficult, they look for shortcuts. They look for an easier way. But that's not how success works. There's no shortcut through adversity. You have to face it head-on. The obstacle is the path. The challenges you face are not detours. They are the necessary steps that prepare you for the next level of success. If you avoid the hard parts, you rob yourself of the strength and wisdom you need to sustain that success. Think about the most successful people in any field. Athletes, artists, entrepreneurs. They didn't reach the top because everything was easy for them. They reached the top because they embraced the hard parts. They trained when they didn't feel like it. They pushed through failure after failure. They faced rejection, disappointment, and setbacks. And instead of letting those experiences break them, they used them to get better. They learned from every obstacle. They adjusted their strategy, they refined their approach, and eventually they succeeded not because they avoided challenges, but because they embraced them. That's the mindset shift you need to make. Instead of seeing obstacles as problems, start seeing them as opportunities. Every challenge you face is an invitation to grow. Every setback is a chance to develop new skills, to refine your approach, to become more resilient. When you stop fighting the struggle and start leaning into it, you unlock a new level of strength. You stop wasting energy resisting what's hard, and you start channeling that energy into finding a way through. It's easy to feel motivated when things are going well, but true strength is built when things aren't going well, when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you feel like quitting, and you push through anyway. That's when you develop mental toughness. That's when you build the confidence that comes from knowing that you can handle whatever comes your way. When you embrace the obstacles, when you stop wishing things were easier and start focusing on getting stronger, that's when you become unstoppable. Success isn't about avoiding difficulty. It's about becoming the kind of person who can handle difficulty without breaking. It's about developing the inner strength and resilience to face any challenge without losing your focus or your confidence. When you shift your mindset from "why is this happening to me" to "what is this teaching me," that's when everything changes. That's when you stop seeing obstacles as threats and start seeing them as stepping stones. Every challenge is an opportunity to get better. Every setback is an opportunity to grow. That's how you build sustainable success. Not by avoiding obstacles, but by using them to your advantage. The obstacle is not the enemy, it's the teacher. Face it head on, learn from it, get stronger because of it. That's how you win. Most of the stress and frustration in life comes from trying to control things that are completely outside of your power. You set goals, you make plans, you put in the effort, but then life throws a curveball. You don't get the job, the relationship falls apart, your business struggles despite your best efforts, and suddenly you feel like you've failed. But you didn't fail, you just tried to control something that was never in your hands to begin with. Success isn't about controlling every outcome, it's about mastering your response to the things you can't control and focusing your energy where it actually matters. You can't control the weather, but you can control whether you let it ruin your day. You can't control how other people treat you, but you can control how you respond to them. You can't control the outcome of every decision, but you can control the effort and the attitude you bring to the table. That's where your power is. Most people waste so much energy trying to control things that are fundamentally uncontrollable. Other people's opinions, the outcome of events, the pace of their progress. But that's a losing game. The more you try to control the uncontrollable, the more anxious and frustrated you become. You can't control the waves, but you can learn how to surf. Think about how much energy you've spent worrying about things that were completely outside your control. The job you didn't get, the person who didn't text back, the opportunity that didn't work out, all that mental energy, wasted on things you had no control over in the first place. But what if you had redirected that energy toward the things that you can control? Your mindset, your effort, your focus. That's where your real power lies. When you stop trying to control the outcome and start focusing on your input, everything shifts. You reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the architect of your life. Success isn't about getting everything to go your way. You can't control whether you win or lose, but you can control how you show up. You can control your preparation. You can control your effort. You can control whether you learn from failure or let it defeat you. That's the difference between people who succeed and people who don't. It's not that successful people have fewer obstacles. It's that they've learned how to focus their energy on what they can control and let go of the rest. Most people are trapped by their need for certainty. They want guarantees. They want to know that if they work hard, they'll succeed. That if they open their heart, they won't get hurt. That if they take a risk, it'll pay off. But life doesn't work like that. There are no guarantees. And that's why trying to control the outcome is so dangerous, because when the outcome doesn't go your way, you feel like you've failed. But you didn't fail. You just forgot that the outcome was never up to you. Your job isn't to control the outcome. Your job is to show up with excellence, with integrity, with courage, and let the rest unfold as it will. Think about a professional athlete stepping up to take the final shot in a game. They can't control whether the ball goes in. There are too many variables at play. The pressure, the defense, the angle of the shot, so much is out of their hands. But they can control their preparation. They can control their mindset. They can control whether they've practiced enough, whether they've studied the game, whether they take the shot with confidence. That's the difference between people who choke under pressure and people who thrive. Not the outcome, but the preparation and mindset behind it. When you understand that your power lies in your effort and not the outcome, you stop being afraid to fail. You stop hesitating. You stop holding back, because you realize that success isn't about winning every time. It's about showing up fully and giving your best, regardless of the outcome. That's where freedom comes from. That's when you stop being a prisoner of circumstance and start becoming truly powerful. You have two choices in life. You can either spend your time trying to control things you can't control and drive yourself crazy, or you can focus on what's within your power and find peace. You can't control the market, but you can control how much you learn and how you respond to setbacks. You can't control other people's opinions, but you can control your self-worth and how you carry yourself. You can't control whether someone loves you back, But you can control how you love yourself and how you show up in relationships. That's your real power, not the outcome, but the way you handle the process. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop attaching your worth and your peace to things that were never within your control in the first place. It means you stop measuring your success by external results and start measuring it by how you show up, by the effort you put in, by the integrity you maintain through the process. That's real success. Knowing that you gave everything you had, that you showed up fully, that you faced every challenge with courage and strength, regardless of the outcome. So stop trying to control the outcome. Stop trying to manipulate the circumstance. Stop measuring your success by things you were never meant to control in the first place. Focus on your input, your mindset, your effort, your resilience. That's where your power is. That's where freedom is. And once you understand that, once you learn to let go of the things you can't control, you become unstoppable. Success isn't about reaching a perfect destination. It's about becoming the person who shows up every day with focus, discipline, and strength, no matter the outcome. When you stop chasing results and start mastering the process, success becomes inevitable.